Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into my official college football week number 5 game picks and predictions where I predict the final score of every single ranked matchup. And how about this? A Friday night game. Oregon State coming off that loss last week against Washington State on the road. They're still ranked within the top 20, and they're taking on Utah, who has catapulted all the way to number 10 in the nation. We're not exactly sure with Cam Rising. Is he going to be back for this game? Guys, I think even if Cam Rising is back, he's going to be very rusty. You've got Oregon State, even though they've got the loss, they're lower ranked, they're sitting -2. There's been a lot of early money on Oregon State, and I love Oregon State in this game. Utah, if you look at their game against UCLA, 200 yards of total offense. They do not have an offense that's good enough to hang with this Oregon State team at home. I will say it was a red flag. Oregon State, the defensive performance against Washington State, really bad. Cameron Ward was 19 of 20 in the first half, but I don't think Utah has an offense that's going to be able to do that to Oregon State. And Oregon State did show me something, being able to hang in there with Washington State after getting down 28-14 early. They at least made it a game. They're able to score on offense, guys. Oregon State at home. It's one of these weird Friday night Pac-12 ranked v. ranked matchups. Take the home team basically as a pick-em. That's an auto lock this week. Let's get to the Saturday games. The first one, here it is. It's big noon at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Mountain Time in Boulder, Colorado. It is USC sitting -24, coming off kind of a lackluster win last week at Arizona State. They've dropped down. They're currently ranked 8th. Colorado unranked after the terrible loss against Oregon. I do think Deion Sanders, even without Travis Hunter, is going to motivate his team, especially after them getting destroyed last week. They're going to keep this game close. I love the under 73.5 because remember, this game is taking place at 10 a.m. These kids are not going to be up for it. It's going to go under. You take a look at this USC team. Again, they're coming up. They came off the bye last week. They had the letdown. This week, you can say, Colorado's defense, obviously not good, but they're at home. They're going to feed off of a good crowd energy in Boulder, Colorado. It's a sellout. It's going to be raucous. There's a lot of, events there basically every time now Colorado plays at home. They will surprisingly keep this game close. I like the value in Colorado at home with a raucous environment plus the 24. I also think you take into account the games at 10 a.m. We'll love the under 73.5. It's great value on that. Give me USC to win, but Colorado to cover. Another noon game. It is Penn State at Northwestern. And man, if you're a Penn State fan, this has got to be brutal. I mean, you watched terrible football last week. Your team won and you shut out Iowa, but it's boring football. And then this week you're facing Northwestern. Now, credit where credit is due. Northwestern showed some life against Minnesota. That was an impressive performance at home. They're at home again in a noon matchup. We understand the crowd energy is going to be horrible for this game. Penn State sitting -26. I've got it at 32-7. I love the under. I'm not exactly sure where the over-under is, but it's probably in the low 40s because Penn State's defense was so good last week, and now they're facing a bad Northwestern team. But I think Northwestern can cover the 26-point spread. Not that I would have any confidence betting it. Penn State right now, they're on a mission. They kind of had to have this weird schedule where they face Northwestern, then UMass, and then Ohio State. So it feels like they might sleepwalk early through this game, maybe like the Illinois game, although even that game they covered the spread. So I will take Penn State. Penn State's been really good at covering the spread. That might be a thing where they're due to not cover one. And this might be the game where they don't cover the 26-point spread on the road. This is another ranked game. So Florida sitting at number 22. And here we have it, ladies and gentlemen. It's the ultra rare, the battle of the overrateds. And what do I mean by that? You've got a Florida team. I don't know how they're ranked. They had like 5 field goals against Charlotte. They struggled against them. Graham Mertz is just simply not a good quarterback. We knew this in the preseason. But there they are sitting at number 22. And then you've got a Kentucky team. Oh my goodness, they're 4-0. They've beaten no one. They had a horrible non-conference, and then they beat Vanderbilt. They're sitting -3 in this game. And unfortunately, when you've got a game like this where it's the battle of the overrateds, the winner of this game becomes even more overrated. Because overrated versus overrated, the winner becomes more overrated. And unfortunately, I think Kentucky's going to win this game, and this is going to vault them probably inside of the top 20. I have them winning by over 3, 27-19, because I don't think Graham Mertz on the road. This is like a repeat of week 1 against Utah. Kentucky's got a good enough defense. Devin Larry's not bad. They'll win this game. They'll cover the 3. It's a nice environment. It's a noon game. Probably also going to be low scoring. That's another theme I think we see. Lower scoring games this week, especially with the noon window. You get that vibe with some of these locations. I will take Kentucky there. Moving on to the 3:30 games, it is Georgia traveling to Auburn. So Georgia, it's getting crazy. They are right now 0-4 against the spread. Obviously, they're 4-0 in real life. They haven't had a good schedule. You can say, oh, they're just sleepwalking. We get it. They're sitting minus 16. Auburn, horrible performance against Texas A&M. Texas A&M's QB got hurt, and they still lost easily. Auburn was 3-0 because they had played a horrible schedule. That's why they were propped up. To me, this is your typical Georgia on the road throttling. They're due for it. And I've got this game not even close, 41-7. Auburn has a terrible offense. This could be a 2 or 3 interception game for Georgia. This is a scoop and score. This might be 2 defensive touchdowns. And listen, say what you want about Carson Beck. It was only against UAB, but I think he had like 250 passing yards in the first half. So their offense, Brock Bowers, the 2 receiving touchdowns, it's getting better, and I think this is one of those games where you can tell Auburn is just not good, and they're due to just get absolutely annihilated, and I think it happens here. They're at home. This is the CBS game. People are going to try and make a big deal about it like it might be an upset. But Auburn, it just comes down to Auburn not being good and Georgia due for a defensive explosion where they get 3 or 4 turnovers. I like them crushing Auburn in that one. Another 3:30 game. It is Michigan, so they are still ranked 2nd. They are taking on Nebraska on the road. Maybe a little bit of an annoying game if you are Michigan. Going to Nebraska is never fun. Remember, the last time Michigan went to Nebraska, it was a night game, and Nebraska very easily could have upset them. Michigan sitting minus 18.5. I do like the value in Nebraska. It's hard with Michigan. They're another team that has really struggled against the spread. They had the game against Rutgers where they opened minus 25.5. It got bet down to 24, and they got very lucky to push in that game. They won by 24 basically because of a 14-point swing late in the third quarter when they got a pick 6 on Rutgers when Rutgers was going into score. They were very fortunate in that game. So I don't think the analytics and the betting model has really adjusted to Michigan. There's good value on Nebraska, even though Nebraska's really not that good of a team. We understand this. We will go ahead and take Nebraska, maybe with a raucous environment at home. You're facing the number 2 team. They will keep this one close, 31-21. Michigan does win. Here's another ranked v. ranked matchup. It is Kansas traveling on the road to Texas. This is probably going to be a very hot game. Very high heat index in this one, 3:30. That means it's 2:30 Central Time. Texas sitting minus 17. Should Kansas be ranked? I don't know. They had a really bad week 3 performance against Nevada. Last week they beat BYU, but they were outgained. I think Texas is going to win this game easily, 49-24. I like the over in this one, and I also do like Texas covering the 17. Texas just looked like a well-oiled machine against Baylor last week. And you can say what you want about Baylor. It's still an impressive win. You have to understand going on the road. It's a night game on ABC. The game did get completely overshadowed, but they won by like 30 points and easily covered the spread. And then again, Kansas, they just don't have the talent. They just don't have the roster talent at this point. They do have a really good coach. We get it, but they've been really fortunate to be undefeated at this point. And by the way, Kansas is a team. Going back, I think week 2 when they played that Friday night game against Illinois, I said they were going to crush Illinois. They did, but there's been warning signs with Kansas. The game against Nevada is terrible. I don't know how you only won by a touchdown. And then last week against BYU, you're outgained by about 70 yards. BYU's not a bad team, but still, does Kansas deserve to be ranked? Maybe, maybe not. It's semantics. They're ranked 24th, whatever. We will take Texas in this one. We've got a 4 o'clock game. It is Missouri traveling to Vanderbilt. So Missouri is a team, personally, I do not think should be ranked at all. If you look at their schedule, they are 4-0 right now. Missouri's first 2 games against horrible opponents, they performed very bad. They were really underwhelming. I had them beating Kansas State at home in week 3, and they did, but let's add the context to that game. It was a walk-off 61-yard field goal. There was luck involved, and then week 4 against a bad Memphis team, they win by, I think, 7. So this is a Missouri team, I think. They're due for a loss. Vanderbilt this year is not bad, and this is a big upset for me, ladies and gentlemen. I do have Vanderbilt getting a huge home win. Let's also remember the conditions at Vanderbilt Stadium. You're dealing with 2 end zone renovations. It's going to be really weird. It's going to be funky. There's going to be no crowd atmosphere, and you're going to see Vanderbilt be able to, not really a surprising or a shocking upset, but certainly surprising. Missouri just should not be 4-0, I think, at this point, and they're due for a loss. Give me Vandy. This is like a program-changing win for them. Even though they're only sitting plus 12.5, it's not like it's a seismic upset or anything like that. But they should win this game 27-24. Moving on to the night game. So this is an early night game on ESPN. It is ranked v. ranked. It's LSU at Ole Miss. LSU sitting minus 2.5. LSU, very streaky team. One week they'll be really good. The next week they'll be really underwhelming. We saw them against Mississippi State 2 weeks ago. They looked great. Last week against Arkansas, they were 17-point favorites. They win by 3. Now they're at Ole Miss in kind of a weird game. LSU, again, minus 2.5. ESPN FPI says there's value in taking Ole Miss plus the 2.5. I don't agree with that. This is a week LSU will be good. They will control this game. They will win it, and they will cover the 2.5-point spread. Ole Miss, I said they were fraudulent. I said to take Bama minus the 7, even though they were dealing with the quarterback issues, and Bama pretty easily covered in that game. Ole Miss offensive line, not good. I'm not saying LSU has as good of a pass rush as Alabama, but they do have talent and certainly a really good offense. Malik Neighbors, the explosiveness. I will take LSU to cover this game. They're streaky. You got to be on them. You got to know when to be on them. And this week, I would be on LSU. Next, it is Oregon, currently sitting at number 9 in the nation, coming off that beatdown of Colorado. They're traveling to Stanford. Stanford involved in a very close game, kind of a bottom feeder game last week against Arizona. Oregon, huge favorites, minus the 26 guys. So there's a few ways to look at this game. I will say it is the obvious letdown game coming off a big win, the Dan Lanning speech, but you can also say, because of what happened, Dan Lanning is going to have this team ready to play. They're going to go in to Palo Alto and really take care of business. But I do think it is maybe not an upset alert, but I'm guessing Stanford's going to hang in this game. We understand college football. It's unpredictable. You would think Oregon would come in here and throttle them. Remember, guys, I was in on Arizona State plus the 29 last week, and they easily covered, and I said it doesn't make sense, but you just got to trust me here. And there's another one. Go in on Stanford plus the 26. It is your obvious letdown game for Oregon. It's going to be sunny. It's a weird 3:30 late afternoon start in California, and we do think people are going to be like, wow, how is it only 17-14 at half? They're going to be shocked. I don't think Oregon loses this game, but they've been covering virtually every spread. They're due for a letdown, in my opinion. Moving on, we've got a 7 o'clock game. It is Oklahoma at home against Iowa State. Oklahoma sitting minus 20.5, coming off a solid win against Cincinnati. Defense only allows 6 points. Oklahoma's a really good football team, and this is going to be a throttling. This will be a spanking. Iowa State is horrible on offense. Oklahoma with Dylan Gabriel, maybe the most underrated quarterback right now in college football. And the other thing I'll say about Oklahoma, a sneaky talented defense. Sneaky talented on the defensive side of the ball. We saw last week they were minus 14.5. They didn't cover. Half point kind of screwed them. They're going to cover the 20.5. Again, Iowa State cannot score. We saw their performance against Ohio. I know last week they scored a bunch of points against Oklahoma State, but I think with Oklahoma being at home, they will take care of business. It may even be like 45-13. It's just not going to be a competitive football game. Moving on to the big-time ABC primetime game, 7:30, Notre Dame sitting minus 4.5, ranked 11th, coming off that brutal, demoralizing loss to Ohio State, and now they have to go on the road against a Duke team who's been a well-oiled machine. They beat Clemson in week 1. Clemson has proven to be a good team. They end up destroying UConn last week and really shutting me up when I said UConn was going to keep that game close. Notre Dame, ladies and gentlemen, they're a solid football team. They've got more talent. You can say what you want about Duke, and they're going to have a good home environment, but that is not a big stadium. It's not going to be crazy loud noise. Sam Hartman is a veteran. I would go in right now, Notre Dame minus the 4.5. You got to zag when other people zig, and we'll take Notre Dame to win this game. I don't know about the over-under. It's probably going to be a pretty low over-under. I have 44 total points scored in this game, but I will take Notre Dame. Surprisingly, you would think Duke being at home, how good they've played this year, the value plus the 4.5, but all the general public is going to be on Duke. Notre Dame's a solid team, and this is a game where we all knew Ohio State had more talent than Notre Dame, and we all know Notre Dame has more talent than Duke, and we all know that Sam Hartman and his experience, although I will say Riley Leonard's a good quarterback, but give me Notre Dame. They're just more talented, and they're a sound football team. They're going to win this game by 10 there and cover the spread. Next, we've got Tennessee at home against South Carolina. So Tennessee sitting minus an 11.5. I mean, South Carolina's been kind of irrelevant this year. Really the only time I remember them is against Georgia. They kind of had a decent performance there. Week 1, they were a real letdown against North Carolina. Tennessee, they're coming off that decent win against UTSA. They really throttled UTSA in the first half and then kind of, took their foot off the gas. They're sitting minus 11.5 at home. Great home environment, night game. I'll take Tennessee to win this game and cover the 11.5 just because I don't think South Carolina is very good. And I think Tennessee's got that really nice home environment there. A weird night game here. 9 o'clock start. Alabama at Mississippi State. Bama's sitting minus 14.5. And I really went in on Bama last week. Take a -7. They end up covering. I think 14.5, even though Mississippi State's been bad this year, 14.5 on the road might be a little bit too big. I'm still concerned about Alabama's offense, especially their receivers. Also, it seems like Jalen Milroe is good for at least 1 or 2 really bad turnovers a game. I will take Alabama to win this game. It's going to be a little bit closer than the spread, 27-21. Weird start time. Just kind of a strange situation there, but Bama does end up winning. Probably the under hits. And then moving on to the nightcap, the night games, 10 o'clock start time. Washington sitting at number 7 in the nation. They've been crushing everyone. Traveling to Arizona. They're minus 18 in this game. And honestly, you would think at some point Washington's going to slip up, but I just don't know how you can bet against them at this point. So I'm just going to take them to cover 42-18. I think I'm kind of being conservative with having them score 42 points. They've been dropping 50 burgers left and right, but I do have them covering the 18-point spread. And the 10:30 game, how about Fresno State getting a shout out against one of the worst teams in FBS, Nevada, currently sitting at 0-4. Nevada lost to Texas State. They were actually beating Texas State 17-0, and then they got crushed in the second half. Fresno State minus 24. Love Fresno State. They're going to be energized at home, being ranked, even if it's only 25th. They will destroy Nevada. Nevada is terrible. Again, they're one of the worst FBS teams, 39-7 in that one. So guys, that is going to do it for my official college football week number 5 picks and predictions. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.